Going live.
What are we going live on YouTube?
Yeah, you're live. Hey.
Live on YouTube. Here we go.
Welcome back to Squatch Talks podcast.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Better and better. You know me. But hey, I'm looking at the wrong screen because right now we got a little delay so we can, bleep out any obscenities. Just kidding. We don't do that here. But we got a special night tonight.
Bleep or say obscenities?
We have a special night tonight. Couple of technical difficulties we experienced over the week, mainly power outages here in New Jersey. Unexplainable, I might add, but we were unable to do our normal recording sessions, so we thought we would hop on with the viewers live tonight. Hopefully you're getting this stream on your YouTube channel. But we have a guest joining us who's going to be sharing some of his adventures in the northwestern portion of Pennsylvania. And I'll tell you, we've heard these stories in the past, and I think you're going to enjoy them. So, Nate, you want to admit our guest? And we'll get started.
Hold on a minute. I'm trying to mute here.
Good idea. I should make sure we're broadcasting, huh?
Yeah,
we are. That's good. Hey, there he is.
Hey, Geoff, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Better and better.
Yep, doing pretty well.
Welcome.
Excellent.
And just so you know, this time we are live. Normally we record with a guest. And I get the opportunity to edit out any bloopers and things like that.
Wow. You know what I mean? I have to be careful.
So don't worry, we got a 20-second delay. So if you say anything, inappropriate, I'm kidding. But no, we're happy to have you on. Thanks for jumping on with us tonight.
Sure. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Our pleasure. Hey, as some of our guests have told us in the past, it was their first time doing a podcast and they had fun, and some, right, Nate, even went on to do their own podcast.
Yeah.
There you go.
With us,
well,
so you never know.
This is the first for everything.
Yeah, we're kind of like a jump start for people's careers in podcasting.
well, you guys really decided to do something that I think is good for the community of researchers, and I have to commend you for you're in your third season now. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Getting ready towards the end. I was just saying to Nathan that I thought we'd have you on, and we got a couple of other guests lined up, and that would probably wrap up season 3.
Okay. Well, happy to be a part of it. Awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. And it's funny. My friend Art was over the other night. We were watching some videos because the weather didn't cooperate to go out, squatching, and so he says to me, "What constitutes a season?" You've been doing
whatever we decide,
right?
Right.
Well, we've only been doing it for just over a year and 3 months or so, right? I said, well, most television shows, the first season might be 8 or 9 episodes, right?
Right.
And then the second season maybe 13 or 14. Who knows if people like it? We've done like 20, 18, you know what I mean, in each season. So I think that's commendable, right?
Well, that's ambitious too. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice to get a little break though once in a while. I'm going to go away at the end of April. So I told Nathan maybe we can take a week or 2 off, and people hopefully will, survive without us. So
that's right. Let people wanting more.
There you go.
Yeah,
absolutely. But hey, they can always click on any time, right? Or check us out on the podcast platforms. We got 30 episodes now up on Spotify and iHeart, all those different places. I'm catching up, so bear with me.
Sure.
I do all the editing here, but so that's coming along. And we usually like to start off at first, because some people don't stick around the whole night, so we like to get the business out of the way. So we always like to ask our viewers to share and like, comments really help us to get those algorithms going. Okay. But we want to thank our friends over at Yeti Bars. We got the new Squatch Talks podcast Yeti Bar, which is one of my personal favorites, like aqua velva,
Yeah.
And it's got these very fine red cedar shavings in them. So it really gets your exfoliating action going on, you know. And our friends at Black Rifle Coffee Company for keeping us supercharged and raring to squatch. So now that the business is out of the way, we'd like to again welcome you. And why don't you start off just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Geoff Harrington. I have grown up in Pennsylvania, lived all over the state, as a matter of fact, originally from the Wilkes-Barre area. And I used to visit relatives in Wilkes-Barre all the time, still have family there. And my uncle was a hunter. So I was in the woods at a very young age and used to hike in the woods as a kid. And throughout my life, I've been fortunate to spend quite a bit of time there I was a distance runner, ran a lot of trails, and also mountain biking was a sport for me for a while. And I was involved some years ago in starting a 1,000-acre nature reserve in Western Pennsylvania when I was part of a hospital system. We got a large bequest of a property outside the city of Williamsport, and I was with a group of people. In fact, I chaired it, and we spent quite a bit of time blazing trails and sort of deciding the uses of the park and encouraging visitors there. So my career was in the nonprofit field my whole life, but the outdoors has always been a part of it.
That's how I feel too. That most of my life has been nonprofit. So.
Yeah. Well, we're all in that predicament.
Yeah. And what got you into the topic of Bigfoot, may I ask?
Well, it's interesting. I was actually after work when I was, I guess, in my 20s. This is back in the 1970s. I happened to read an article in the New York Times. I think it was a front page article, as a matter of fact. It was about loggers in Oregon who had these encounters with large man-like creatures in the woods. And the reporters really took it seriously. They interviewed the people and they asked them for their accounts. And I was impressed by how sincere these guys were. They were working men, who were kind of no nonsense guys, but they knew what they saw in the woods and they were reporting it. They got good looks at these creatures many times. And so that got me interested, and I started reading some books on the subject. But I have to say, I got a little maybe weirded out by the whole idea that there could be these creatures living in the woods around us that we couldn't see, and were visiting our homes at night, and the whole concept of it. And so I had to put it aside after a while, and just went about my business. I did the nature reserve that I was talking about, spent lots of time in the woods, never thought about Bigfoot until that time I was living in Williamsport, when we found these man-like, human-like footprints outside of our home one morning. And we took pictures and brought the state forester in and asked him, what could this be? And he was stumped by it. And so I started reading those books again, and took it as far as I could. I, talked to a few people about it, and I felt that it was, very consistent with what I'd read in those books over the years. And I put it aside for 20 years until my daughter sent me the pictures again. Well, I guess it was 10 years, and said, there's this organization called the BFRO. And I started reading the website and lots of hundreds of eyewitness accounts. And I sent my pictures into the BFRO. And one of the researchers that I talked to, heard my story and felt that we really had been visited by a Sasquatch. And that got me interested.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So tell me then, you did that a few years ago, right? Because you
Yeah, that's
attended
right.
was that expedition that we met on in 2021 in Pennsylvania, your first expedition?
It was my first BFRO
Okay.
expedition. But after I became aware of the BFRO site, I really didn't know how to get involved with it. So I took the knowledge that I had from the website and actually started listening, going for walks in the woods, taking hikes. And I just on a hike that I took in the Reading area, I actually found some evidence that maybe this area was inhabited. And I started studying it, started revisiting the area. I found stick structures and started walking off trail. And I had some encounters that I didn't see. I didn't have a sighting, but I got screamed at in the woods one night by something that was probably man-sized. It was like a chatter almost between a howl and a scream. It was just like I was being scolded for being out in the woods. And so I also was zapped by what I think was infrasound at one point in time. But I still, there was still a doubt in my mind that that these creatures were real. I have always found, and I've talked to other witnesses, that when you go in the woods and you see something that you can't explain, your mind doesn't want to believe it. It makes up stories. It tries to make it logical. It tries to tell you that what you've seen is something else.
Right.
It's your mind was playing tricks on you. You misidentified something else, but you get to a point where you reconcile with that, and you realize that you really did have this experience. And so I never had that sighting experience until I went to Western Pennsylvania to live for a while in a small city, not Pittsburgh, small city that was in a surrounded by wooded areas and pretty deep woods in some instances. And I started walking. I was taking care of my mom, who was suffering from dementia at the time. And I used to sort of rejuvenate myself by walking in this nature reserve type area. And one day, walking with my dog, we had this very strange feeling that I did, at least. I know he had some kind of a fear because he wanted to stop walking near the woods. We were walking a trail that bordered the woods and cut through it in places. And there was a big open field. And it was at dusk. We started off too late. I would say that's one reason I have these encounters is I find myself, in the woods late in the afternoon. It's just, I'm attracted to that hour of the day.
The golden hour, we call that.
That's a good time to be there. Yeah,
that is. It's beautiful. And I think that's probably what makes me want to go there. But we ran out of daylight at this time, and the darkness was closing in. It was pretty heavy dusk. And as he pulled me ahead, he was weirded out by something. We got to this rise, and over the top of it, we saw the tails of a bunch of deer running for the woods. And that got my dog excited. So he forgot his fears and he started pulling towards them. And I got the strangest feeling that, we were being watched and that he shouldn't be making all this noise. I wanted to get the heck out of there. And all of a sudden we saw I saw these three large shapes step out of the woods. And I could only see them in outline. I could see the color was like almost a beige color, like fallen leaves almost. And like the leaf cover in the winter. They were about that color. And this was December. The leaves were off the trees. And we're out in the middle of nowhere, and there's these three large shapes paralleling us. And I tried not to panic, but I knew if this was Sasquatch, and I knew from my training they probably weren't going to attack, and I just needed to get out of their territory. But I got some eye shine from flashlight, and
You used your flashlight?
I was using it to guide my way. I was walking through a field with it was pretty dark at that point. And I also wanted to make sure we weren't being followed.
Mm-hmm.
So I was using the flashlight behind me, sort of turning around, relying on the dog to, keep us out of trouble.
Sure.
And
Okay.
I caught the eye shine of one of the creatures who had sort of dropped off to follow us from behind to make sure we left the vicinity, I think. And I caught it right
flanking
in the
you.
face.
Yeah, it was kind of flanking you, and
I was really afraid that they were going to surround us, and I was looking for a way out. But they were just the two that continued were just paralleling us in a very calm way, walking next to us, and I'd say it was 700 yards. It lasted maybe between 5 and 10 minutes altogether.
Wow.
They dropped off and went into the woods at one point when we got near the parking lot of this area. And so they disappeared into the woods. And we just continued our walk until we were where we needed to be. So it was a little intimidating, but I found myself not really frightened. But when it was over, when I realized that we weren't threatened, it was I had peace. I had peace of mind at that point. But it hit me, a week or two later, what had happened, and I didn't go in the woods for a while. I have to say that. But
I can relate with that for sure. But
weeks,
you handled it appropriately. I mean, I always say the best defense against a possible, Sasquatch intimidation is a bright flashlight, of course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but
absolutely. Yeah. They don't like that.
And they generally don't like dogs either. What type of breed of pet do you have?
It was a bull terrier.
Okay.
And
so not terribly huge, right?
No, at the time he was probably between 30 and 40 pounds.
Right.
And he was a young dog too, and wasn't aggressive at all. He chased deer a few times, before this happened. So I figure he ran into them at some point in time along the way, because he
recognized the smell.
He was real nervous about being in certain area before this happened. He was real nervous about being in this part of the preserve that we were in. He didn't like to walk the trails right around there. So that's why he pulled me away from there at night. He was getting scared about it. But they never, obviously never did anything to him. And I think maybe they knew he was a young dog and not really aggressive. He was just had a lot of energy. Yeah.
So you saw 3 silhouettes
Yeah.
initially, right?
Yes.
Could you determine, like, size-wise, like if one was bigger than the other two, or if there was
definitely one was taller. The two, I saw the 3 of them, and then they separated. The 2 went on, and one followed me.
Yeah.
And the two that continued, or of the 3, one was noticeably taller. I guessed he was in like the 7 foot, at least 7 foot range, maybe taller. The one that continued with him was maybe my size, about 6 feet tall, maybe a little bit taller. And they're very athletically built. They weren't real heavy looking creatures. In fact, the tall one, I sometimes hesitate to say this because then people think you're making this up, but he kind of reminded me of Chewbacca, the shape of his head and his physique, a little bit heavier, maybe, broader in the shoulders.
That's again what people's minds wrap around though often. You know what I mean? I've heard other witnesses say, especially children say, Mommy, I just saw Chewbacca,
Right. Yeah, I've read that. I've read that as well.
One of my witnesses saw a juvenile and he called it, was it Chaka from Land of the Lost?
Yeah.
Is that the character's name? Yeah. And that's how he described it. Same coloration of the hair, So that's a common thing. Like you said, when people have an occurrence, whether it's, something known or unknown, the mind will typically wrap around something that it's familiar with, you know? And that happened to me on my road crossing, when I had this Squatch run out in front of us on the way back, my passenger slid forward and said, "What the F was that?" And I went, "Deer," and she said, "No, it wasn't." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Immediately. And so I can relate with that.
Yeah.
And also how you said you didn't feel threatened. You were cautious, you know what I mean? And aware, but you didn't feel like feared up, and until 2 weeks later.
Right.
Like same thing. When I saw one 75 yards away, I had a feeling of calm come over me.
Right.
So I can totally relate with both of those.
But you knew what you had some experience to draw upon, right? When you had your first sighting, is that right?
I was on my second expedition at that point. So really I considered myself a newbie, back in 2000.
But you'd read a lot of sighting reports and things.
Sure.
Yeah. I think that helps you through it because you know what the behavior typically is, right?
That helps.
Yeah.
It helped, but at the same time, we still make mistakes when we're new at this, and I still make mistakes even old at this. So.
Come on.
Oh no, Nate'll tell you, especially on the third night, but what it is like Saturday night when you're on the night ops and you're sleep deprived, you know what I mean? It's easy to make some mistakes, but no, that's really cool though. That's the first experience you had with
the
these
first one,
right?
Yeah,
that's not where it ended because I know this went on for quite some time. And,
yes, we had a relationship.
It's what we call a habituation.
Yeah,
right.
It really, really was. This was what I eventually determined to be a family. I mean, you could say, well, if there were three of them, it's a no-brainer. But I really didn't know what they were, that they were a family. They could have been part of a larger group, but I eventually felt pretty strongly that it was a mother and father and a juvenile, and I was to have many more different types of encounters with them because I did go back in the woods, and they knew that I knew they were there, and we had an awareness of each other. And so they weren't afraid to show themselves to me, and for different purposes. It particularly the female that tried to intimidate me sometimes by, appearing and just kind of glaring at me from the shadows. Or one time I was walking my dog at night, and I was with my brother-in-law and his dog, and we walked. We were near this wooded area. And as we were all leaving, I just happened to look back, and I saw this creature. It was less than 25 feet away, and it was backing into the woods, but it had been standing there, kind of monitoring us. And my mind did not want to believe that, but I would see her many other times. She would made herself very obvious that she didn't like me in the woods, and I think it had something to do with the juvenile. She was being protective of her family. But
for sure.
Yeah, we've heard that before from other witness reports as well, especially when there's a mom and a one or two juvenile in the area. But that's again something that it's just blows me away, you know. But
25 feet. That's
Yeah, 25 feet is close.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I didn't want to believe it.
Yeah.
But it was, I saw this creature. Is it my imagination? But then I'd seen her again. And it was the same figure. And I'd seen her out in the open, not quite that close, but, 50 feet another time. This
You
would
could tell she was a female, obviously.
No, I could not. It wasn't obvious to me from her physique that she was, but
Yeah.
I felt that because of her size relative to the large one that I described, that and the fact that I would see them, that I saw them together, and I, from my sightings that I had over the next 3 years, they were the only three that I ever saw. It was always the same
Same ones.
relative size. So I figured it had to be a family group. But
Yeah.
she didn't look like Patty in the
EGF film.
Gimlin film. Yeah.
Wow. So were you able to determine hair color or any other details as far as eyes, anything specific?
The eyes were very dark. The face was, I would say, more human-like than of the ones that I did see, which was the female and the juvenile. They were hair covered. They may have had some patches of skin showing, but to me, it looked like they were completely covered by hair. Their nose was not particularly like ape-like, but nor was it human. It was more almost like a dog's face in a way, but no snout. It was just that appearance of a maybe like a furry little dog, except they were bigger.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I noticed, and I believe, is that I had seen them. I'd seen two of them in the summertime, and they were a dark color. But the first time I saw them in winter, and I think that may have been one of two sightings that I had in the winter. Most of the time, I didn't see them during the winter months. A lot of it had to do with there being snow cover, and I didn't hike there as much.
Sure.
But they were of a lighter color in the winter when I saw them. The large male, always looked like that, had that beige color, and the other sightings that I had were primarily of the female and the juvenile, and I got a good look at them, and they were dark colored in the summertime. So I've never heard that Sasquatches change color.
Yeah.
I've heard people say that they might, but I've never really read much about that. But I really, in this case, feel that that's a possibility, because I have no way to explain that. I never saw the beige color in the summertime. It was always when the trees were bare of leaves, and that color blended in with the forest cover. So I felt it was a kind of a camouflage that maybe they developed. Interesting theory.
Did you ever hear? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nathan.
No, that means a lot toward the whole disappearing thing. That everybody says they disappear. If they're changing colors like that, even if it's gradual, that means something there.
Yeah, I feel like that maybe they changed with the season.
Yeah. Kind of like a deer does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if you ever had any vocalizations of any sort. Did they, grunt at all, or did they growl or chatter? Any of those types of things occur on these hikes?
I never was growled at all. Most of the things that they did that were that were audible were like breaking branches and, making a lot of noise in the brush. At one time there was I think it was a deadfall that got, or a dead tree got pushed over.
Okay.
When I was hiking, I heard this big crash and could see that there was something in the woods. I couldn't see what it was, but I saw some movement.
Yeah.
And so they did things like that.
One of our viewers who's chatting with us in the group tonight mentioned that he's been, I think, to the same location that you're describing. So he says he's familiar with it. So hi to Greg and everybody else who's checking us out tonight. And I want to thank Greg for the Finding Bigfoot book that he brought to me from Salt Fork, Ohio last week.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't know why I didn't have that in my collection, but now it's a nice addition. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, and he had a dog also with him as he was hiking in this particular area. So he can really relate with what you're saying as well.
No, he thinks that he was in this area of Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Yeah, back in the 70s as well. So he's saying he's backing you up. He says you ain't making this up.
Well, that's good. Once I met a guy that I would see in the woods a lot hiking, and I kind of nerved up at one time, and I asked him. He was telling me how much time he spent in the woods, and I said, "Did you ever see any creatures like this there?" And there was silence. He kind of looked at me, and that was it. That was like the end of the conversation. Yeah. Right there. So that was the only person I really talked to about my experiences when I was out there.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned to me when we spoke that, you really haven't talked about this with too many people, and you confided in a couple of friends, and kind of, they know you're a credible guy. So they say, okay, if you're telling us this, we believe you.
Well, they still don't believe me.
Well, but they're not going to shame you or, you know what I mean? But when you came on the expedition with us, it was great to hear your story. And I know a couple of the attendees actually got to spend some one-on-one time with you as well to get more into detail. And I was told by them also how amazing this stuff is. I mean, this is so far what you've shared is almost like the tip of the iceberg kind of thing. Whoa, earthquake, sorry. So this is over the course of 3 years, as I mentioned.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think you've described maybe 3 or 4 occasions at this point where you've been out in this preserve hiking.
Yeah.
Where did it get to the point where it kind of turned into a habituation?
Well, I think that it started when I got the impression that that I was being visited at night. And honestly, thanks for asking that question. I'm going to have to think about that and, kind of probe the memory banks. And I have been writing this down, by the way. I'm working on a book about it. And
cool.
I somehow got the impression that they were visiting because my house wasn't that far from where I was having some of these experiences. Right. And so I started looking for footprints, and I found some in the peat moss around the house, and I uncovered them and I casted them. So I knew that they were coming in the area, and the dog would get upset at night that there was something on the property. He would come to me and kind of bark at me and let me know that he was upset. And this happened regularly. So
do you think they followed you, or do you think they tried to find you? I mean, why follow you home?
Well, I think that they probably spent time in the surrounding neighborhoods. I think that they did that before I was there. I think that there were deer that maybe they followed and kept an eye on. Maybe they raided trash cans. Maybe they knew how to get food from other sources in the area. They're pretty smart, and I think they were curious about me because maybe they're apparently not a lot of people knew about them. And
right. And you didn't react any sort of way that harmed them. So
right. And I kept going in the woods, and a couple times when they appeared to me, I really didn't I tried not to show fear. Although
I'm sure that wasn't easy to do.
Yeah. So it became, so your question, when it became a habituation, I think that when I saw that they were not hostile, and maybe they weren't, the one wasn't really happy, but I started to try to make friends with them. And I would go into the woods and I would bring a book along, and I'd just read from it, different types of books. I actually read poetry
Out loud.
like The Charge of the Light Brigade, something like that. Yeah, something that I thought would get their interest, because I'd read that they really have been known to like come closer to human campfires when people are talking, that it's kind of a source of entertainment for them, when something different that happens. Yeah.
They don't have cable TV, obviously.
Right.
So.
Right. But they've been known to watch TV through windows. I've read reports of that.
Indeed.
But I also would play my harmonica when I was walking through the woods, and I would sing songs, and I would talk. A couple times I stopped, and where I knew they were, where I felt that they hung out, and talked to them. You said, I'm, who I am, who my dog was, that we're friends, not to worry about us, that kind of thing. And I just feel like they responded to that. They felt comfortable with me. At least two of them did. And the other one was okay with threatening me out in. Yeah.
Somebody got to keep you in line, right?
That's right.
It's probably the parent figure, right?
Right.
And
right.
that's also reported in a lot of things we hear from other witnesses that have seen an adult with juvenile. I mean, they could be even a little intimidating at times, Yeah. Not happy about you being around their young.
Yeah, that's a protectiveness, and that's interesting though, because I don't really get to talk to that many people in the in the research community. So I may not, it's good to hear those kinds of things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why we do this, because we're not only sharing our experiences with the people, but we get to bring on people like yourself who have all these other, great encounters and stories to share. And it's just something that we're happy to provide. So I think it's awesome. But, I remember you showing us the casts that you made, and they were pretty impressive, I have to say. Especially for somebody who hadn't really had any formal training, with regards to track casting or anything. You had a few of those with you, and you also had a walking stick, if I recall.
Oh yeah, the stick.
Yeah, I did. Well, you know what? I don't have those casts. They're in a storage right now.
Cool.
But I do have. If you like to see those sticks, I would. Could show them to you, or I'll talk to you about them.
Absolutely, whatever you prefer, Geoff. I mean,
okay.
If you want to grab the stick, that's
let
fine.
me grab them.
And it's a really cool story. I think it's worth the wait, Nathan.
Oh yeah, sure.
But I'll tell you what, this is the kind of stuff we go out there trying to do, right, and experience. And Geoff happened to have been out in an area of what we call the PNW, and just so happens to have been fortunate enough to experience these things. And I was blown away by some of the stories he shared at your expedition that year. So.
Yeah, Yeah, I didn't even get to listen to a lot of them. I was off, running around like an idiot. But
That's what I told them. I said, as organizers and assisting and that kind of thing, we don't always get to have the one-on-ones with as many of the attendees as we'd like. But that's why.
Yeah, and I forget that those kinds of things. You guys had work to do while the rest of us were sitting around the campfire.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say about the expeditions, if anyone listening has never been on a BFRO expedition, I would recommend it, especially if you haven't had experiences, encounters, or heard or seen anything, and you'd like to talk to people who have. It's really a good experience, very well organized and entertaining the whole time. It was a great group of people too.
Well, thanks. We
appreciate that.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so I might as well bring up, we have a couple scheduled this year, one in June in the Pine Barrens, June 8th through the 11th. Slots are filling up fast. And the PA expedition in the fall is September 28th through October 1st. That one is just about full. And if Nathan had his way, he'd say that's it.
Oh, yeah.
I just like to have a couple of extras because there's ultimately a chance somebody might drop out. You know what I mean? Right. So go to bfro.net and click on the expedition page if you're interested in inquiring about that. But Geoff, that was perfect. And
so to the story, I know your time is not unlimited here, but I mentioned that, that I was having encounters with them, that they were visiting me. I also, sometimes when I would walk, I'd bring an apple along and I would leave it for them. I'd take a bite out of it, also break off a little piece, give it to the dog. And then I would throw this in the woods so that they would not, would know that it wasn't tainted with poison or anything like that.
That's smart.
So I started to find things on my back porch, and those of you who read Bigfoot stories hear that there's a lot of in habituation situations. There's where the man and beast are familiar with each other. There's sometimes trading that goes on, and there's stories about the Sasquatch trading with the Indians and so forth in folklore. But one morning, my dog and I came out of the house. He was off lead at the time, and he came running down the porch, made a sharp right turn and ran under a bush, a huge bush on the property. And he came out with a stick. Now, that stick was kind of, looked like it somebody had made it. And I want to give you a little context of it. This right here is a walking stick that I got at the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair, and it's a branch of a tree, that has a root that grew around it. And I got this at the magic shop at the Renaissance Fair.
It looks like an Englewood spruce.
Is it?
I have one very similar that I got at the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair. Wow.
Well, you can see
25 years ago.
It has a slight bow to it.
Okay.
And it's
beautiful.
The guy who sold it to me said he was a wizard. He put some special blessings on this. So
there you go. Maybe it worked.
So I always liked it, and I carried it all the time on walks. Then I visited my daughter in New Jersey and brought the stick along and left it there. So I was without it. I was using different hiking sticks. And so I come out of my house. This stick is nowhere that I know of. It's far away. And the dog fetches this stick from outside under the
bushes.
And if you can see, the curvature of these is very similar. They're both sitting on the ground now. You can see they both have a bow in them towards the top, closer to the top. They're about this one that my dog found is about 2 inches shorter, but it's
Right.
really close. And you can see obviously the adornments on this from the tree root. And this stick has some side branches on it. Now, this one is about a 1/2 inch thick, and it's twisted into a curlicue.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's another one, another knot.
Wow.
That's
And
amazing.
There's 2 more here. And I tried to imagine myself twisting in fact, I tried this with a branch that I found. And, it's almost impossible for a human being to twist this without some kind of mechanical tool. Now, I'm sure there are some really strong people who could do this, but who did that and put it under
Your bush. Yeah.
my bush, and my dog found it immediately. And you can see that it kind of has like an adornment to it in about the same position. And this was a branch that has an actual saw cut here. And I figured that this was something, there's brush cut at the entrance to this nature reserve. And, I'd seen it thrown in off to the side by I guess whoever maintains that area. And so they picked this up and figured out that it was about the right thing. And so I started carrying this in the woods with me. It's my substitute for quite a while. And yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have to say that is a lot of similarities. And I like how the vine grew around the other one, you know what I mean? To cause that spiral in the
Yeah.
I call it a walking staff.
Yeah.
And like I said, I have an Englewood spruce staff as well, which I used with me back in the day in the Pine Barrens. And I remember getting up on this hill and finding some old material on the top of this, pile of, I think dirt that was pushed there at some point when they were clearing the cranberry bogs. And there was an old dam up top. And I just went boom, 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 with the staff. And I had my digital recorder going, and that's when I actually got my first wood knock responses.
Really?
Yeah, using that staff. And I subsequently, when I was doing a wood knock with it at one point, cracked it. So I don't do wood knocks with it anymore, but I still have it. And
where did you say you got that in the same place?
At the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make a point to go back to it this year and hopefully get a new one.
Yeah.
That's one of my objectives for this August, is when I think it comes back to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's a very cool place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful. Great story too. I love how the dog just ran right out under the bush, comes walking out with this stick, and you're like, whoa. And you were able to put 2 and 2 together and see the similarities.
Yeah, I mean, it was especially when I got the other staff back, when about 6 months after I left it behind, my daughter came to visit, brought the stick back to me. And then when I held the 2 of them up, it was just uncanny.
Wow.
That they really pay attention. That's for sure.
And like you said,
make it look
twisting, right, Nate? That's not easy to do, even with a small little sapling. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it takes some strength.
Yeah,
that's not the only thing that was gifted to you, if I recall, right? You've had other things left on your
there were a couple of other things. There was a stick that was about 6 inches long that was actually about the length of my favorite size of cigar that I smoked in those days. And I used to smoke them sometimes in the woods. And so they left it on the table or let's say this, it appeared on the table one morning. And I used to smoke cigars out there on the porch too. So they maybe were trying to do something to please me.
I'll tell you, that's something that they do. They do observe, I think, and notice what, people they're familiar with are doing. That's why when we go out, I try to wear the same clothing. I try to use the same vehicle, you know what I mean? All the same type of behaviors too. And like you said, put out good, good feelings, good energy, and hopefully they'll grow to feel comfortable enough to show themselves like they
To
did
approach,
with you.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Not here in Jersey, not as much. They got that forget about it attitude.
When you started talking, you were mentioning the footprints and how they were, that you had to talk to somebody about them. You know what I mean? That they were that odd when you asked
from the you mean for the first set of footprints that I found near my house?
Yeah, the very first set.
Yeah, back in Williamsport. Yeah.
Right. What about them was so that just wouldn't let you say it was a footprint, like a human footprint?
Oh, well, first of all, the pattern, I backtracked them, and they had come up. This was in the snow, obviously.
Okay.
This was, they had come up a steep hill and gone through backyards and climbed a fence and come past through my yard, and then went out over an embankment and back into the woods. So it was obviously, some creature that was not walking the streets.
Right. Okay.
And the shape of them, where the footprints were distinct. My daughter had been home, and she was with the family dog, different dog at the time. And he had been upset that there was something outside, and he was normally a pretty chill dog, but he got very upset. And so we knew something was out there, and I didn't check it till the morning. And we found that these footprints that had been preserved by a light glaze of rain the night before that had frozen them, so we could really get a look at them. And
that's lucky.
You could see that it was you could see that it was shaped like a human footprint, but it was almost like and it was about 6 inches long. And you could see there was just an outline of, like, let's say, of my hand, and you could see the articulated toe. That one toe stuck out to the side a little bit.
Oh, wow.
And I did talk to a woman that was a primatologist. She worked with in some kind of a facility where they took care of different types of exotic animals, and she did have experience with apes and monkeys, and said that it really did look like it could be the way a young ape would stand before they're fully erect, that they sort of stand on the side of their feet, so that it was kind of an odd shaped footprint.
Okay.
You could see where the toe outline was, but it was kind of towards the back. It was very narrow, so it didn't look like a standard flat human footprint. It's almost like it was on the side. You could see the toe like this, but you couldn't see the whole thing like you would with a full-grown creature or human being's footprint.
Yeah, and if you recall, when we spoke earlier, I was telling you about the expedition we had in Pennsylvania the year following the one you were on. We had a anthropologist on the expedition with us, which was really great, and so that was very informative, to have a scientific background. And this year in Pennsylvania, we're going to have a DNA scientist on board as well.
Wow.
So we're really thrilled to have that. Geoff Meldrum, Dr. Meldrum actually said, hey, I would be interested in, networking with this individual. So hopefully everything will work out. But yeah, it's confirmed that they will be attending. So I'm pretty excited.
Excellent. Well, that should add another dimension to it.
Yes.
No doubt. And, we've been talking about eDNA analysis and everything. Obviously, there's nothing to compare it to really, at this point. But hey, hopefully we'll change all that,
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think for me, I know they're there, and I've had my encounters, and I feel like they've been with us for a long time.
Right.
And they don't need our recognition to to survive. I think
they don't need our help. That's for sure.
Yeah,
that's how I feel. I don't think they need my protection. Now, I know some people get upset when I say that. I don't mean that I mean that they've done pretty good on their own.
Yeah.
I'm not out to prove anything or to protect them. I feel like they're doing really well. Obviously, we want to preserve our land and,
absolutely,
and do our best to leave only footsteps when we're out there, footprints, whatever. But yeah, I mean,
well, yeah, I think anything that we do for conservation of natural resources will help them, obviously. Forests, protecting forests and
one of our viewers,
fresh water.
Tom, who's been on expeditions with us, he's mentioned that the forests have actually come back over the years due to environmental efforts that we've been doing, so that's good news. But yeah, it doesn't require much land for these individuals to be around. Some of the stories we get in, because keep in mind, our database only has published reports,
Right.
That doesn't even touch the thousands of reports that are in there, you know what I mean? But there's over 15,000 reports that are published. That's not anything to sneeze at over from 1995, right? Till now. So keep in mind all the ones that are, either unreportable or we can't get a hold of the witnesses, whatever the case may be. There's just so many reports that come in from areas, like even Nathan has said it. One witness reported to the BFRO and he just didn't think it was possible that there could be anything there, you know what I mean, based on the location. But when you got to the actual, site, you were able to see how this is possible. You know what I mean? They could actually be coming underneath the bridge.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, that was
in Bethlehem, I think it was, right?
Well, I think that
something
was
like that.
It was Wilkes-Barre, I think, actually.
Okay, so a big city area, right?
Yeah,
and pretty landlocked, and so I think that even with the encroachment that humans are doing, they're still able to survive with less area,
right?
Although that would then probably mean that they would have to be more opportunists and dumpster dive or seek food sources maybe from people's homes or whatever, things that are left out for wild animals or pets, you know what I mean? So well, I don't know what got me off on that, but you were
that means we're probably giving them high blood pressure and stuff because they're eating our leftovers.
Our nasty American diet. Yeah.
But
when I mentioned they were lean looking, they weren't overweight,
these guys were lean. Yeah. So they obviously were watching their intake.
That's good.
But I think that, when I was investigating for the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society back in the early 2000s, after I'd gotten involved in this and had my study site up in the Reading area, I started talking to some people and there were some credible sightings in areas that were pretty urbanized or, were adjacent to urban areas. But, what my theory was that, these creatures they had their traditional routes that they would follow. Maybe some people think they're migratory. I don't know if that's true, but if they use stream beds as highways because they're out of the way, their humans aren't there at night usually, unless they're, night fishing or whatever. And then there's sightings a lot of the time, but they're going to go through areas that they've traditionally gone through and just learn to adapt.
Well, when we were talking with Geoff last couple of episodes ago, he mentioned too with like the Indians, they're more nomadic. I can't remember the investigator's name that was on that video with him, but he said too they traveled the same paths that they traveled hundreds and hundreds of years ago, just like the American Indians do, and I think they still travel those same paths even today.
and use a lot of rivers and streams to do so.
It's exactly how they did it. You had to travel with the water. You traveled water to water back then because you had to have it,
Yeah, the forests were too thick.
Right.
Right. So, and nowadays, obviously, rivers and streams go underneath roads. There's bridges, which gives them a clearing to go across roads without being seen easily as well,
Absolutely.
Wow. So does that pretty much cover everything that you had experienced while you were living in the western part of the state, helping your mom?
Well, I would say that, those are some of the good things. There were a couple of things that were uncomfortable for me. I told the story at the BFRO expedition, but I had a habit, as I said, of getting out in the woods too late. And one night I took a very ambitious walk, and I ended up facing the last mile of it. It was probably a 3 to 4 mile walk. And then the last mile was going to have to be after dark because I ran out of daylight. And after climbing out of a ravine and taking a trail that I'd been on a number of times in this preserve, I heard a noise behind me that I thought first was maybe a deer that got, crossed my trail behind me, but it was keeping pace with me, and it was getting closer, and it was making a whole lot more noise than a deer would. And I realized I was being followed. And at first I was afraid it might be a human being, because that really would have been a concern. That would have made me really uncomfortable. But I began to realize that no human could pace with me through the underbrush like this pursuer was doing. And I decided to get out of the woods as quickly as I could. So I took a shortcut out of the wooded area through a field. It would have been a longer walk, but I just wanted to get out of this being pursued. And I unfortunately, the trail I took led me right back towards the where this creature was. And I could kind of feel its presence. You could feel the energy of it. And, people say they can read energy, and you can. If you tune into it, you tune into the woods, and you don't tune out of it. And I just kept walking as if I was not perturbed. And I was, scared as hell, but I was trying not to show it. I was just walking deliberately. I had my dog with me. And we got to a point where we got out of the woods, and we still had to follow this trail which paralleled the woods. And I looked back, I got my flashlight just close enough that I could see the outline of this creature, sort of paralleling me from maybe 100 feet away. And its final message to me was it broke a huge branch. As kind of a warning, not to come back that way again after dark. So, that was where I felt I maybe pushed the envelope a little bit.
Gave you a pretty clear message.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wow.
So that there were things like that. The same creature uprooted a small tree on another night. It was earlier, but it came out of the brush and pulled a sapling out of the ground and threw it down. So this was towards the end of my tenure there in that area, my stay in that area. And I was kind of, when I look back on it, I think, well, maybe that was a good thing, that I left.
They were getting tired of you.
Yeah.
That's some amazing stuff.
Yeah. Wow. But the others continued to show curiosity, throughout the stay that I had. So,
wow,
it was a mixed situation.
Yeah, I remember you telling us about these encounters in Pennsylvania, and I was definitely thrilled to hear some of these stories. And I thought back then, wow, you could write a book. So.
I'm doing. Sure. I've written quite a bit of it, and I'm trying to make it more than just a tale of Bigfoot, and sort of relate it to what was happening in my life, and why I was there, and what I learned from the experience of spending a lot of time in the woods, apart from those encounters, what it meant for me to have that time.
Absolutely.
When I was taking care of a parent who was failing in health.
Absolutely. That's tough. That's a real tough situation to be in regardless. Yeah. And that's what, I always tell people too, is, even my clients, I say, get outdoors, go for a walk in the woods, just get that serenity. That's how I gained my serenity back from the stress of life and, life on life's terms. You know what I mean? Getting out in nature is one of the best ways to decompress, And so for anybody who's, new to it, like Geoff said, he went on to the website, checked out local sightings in his area. He got together with like-minded individuals in his area as well. The PBS, right? I think Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society. I think that's Eric Altman's group, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, hey, that's how you get started. That's how, we did it too. We don't all have daughters like Nathan who says, "Hey, Dad, I want to go on a Bigfoot expedition for my birthday." But hey, that's really cool. And then, like I said, by getting out there, it gives you time to reflect and to become, one with nature, as we say.
Yeah, it's really rewarding in a lot of ways. And trees, they're learning that trees are really unique in they're part of a system in the woods. They help each other out in sharing nutrients and everything. There's a couple of books that are out. One called The Secret Life of Trees.
Yep.
That was very popular. I think it was a bestseller. And there's another guy in Germany who's done a lot of studies of forest ecosystems and what we could learn from them if we wanted to.
I have a book called The Man Who Planted Trees. That's another one.
I've heard of that.
It's, it's amazing though. And hearing people like yourself share about these encounters and events that took place, it helps us to put things together. And when we hear similar types of reports from other people, you're less likely to doubt the credibility. You know what I mean? And so that really does make a difference. Plus, when you've done as many witness reports and expeditions, whatever, you really do start to see patterns develop as well,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, that's awesome.
Well, it's been great to be with you guys today.
Yeah, thanks for telling us your stories. I really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey,
it's good to see you guys again after I think a year and a half since we
it's been a while. Like you said, I mean, time flies when you're having fun, but it just seems like it goes by so quick, especially as we get more mature, as I say.
Right.
But
I noticed that you kind of bond with that group of people that you meet, and I've stayed friends on Facebook with half a dozen of people that I met on that.
Right.
You see post something, doesn't have to be Bigfoot related, but somebody right there liking it and commenting. So it is
absolutely
cool.
I just saw a post from one of the guys I met in the BC expedition when I told you about that first encounter, and he scared the crap out of me, right? Because I thought he was a Bigfoot coming down the hillside one night. So he and his wife just celebrated like 13 or 14 years of marriage. Okay. And of course, I get to see their lives continue together after all these years. And one inside joke that we have is, and it was heading straight for us, Right. So I wished him a happy anniversary, and I said, it's heading straight for us. So
you matchmaker, right?
Well, I didn't have anything to do with that. She actually came on the expedition with him pregnant. Okay.
There you go.
Up in BC.
That's hardcore.
That is hardcore. And they've been together ever since. And hey, it's a true love affair. And
more power to him.
Yeah. But that's what happens. You get on these things, you get the Bigfoot bug, as I call it. And typically we do form these bonds and friendships that can last a lifetime. So hey, I just want to thank you again for sharing your stories with us. And again, thank everybody for tuning in and our friends at Yeti Bars. Okay. Go to yetibars.net. And don't forget to order your Squatch Talks podcast Yeti bar and use code STP10 at checkout. But Nathan, I have some exciting news to share with our listeners and viewers. We actually have a merchandise store up at the moment. Just launched, okay, where they can go on and check out some new merchandise from Squatch Talks. And there's also an STP10 code there as well.
Cool.
So for a limited time for our viewers, we're going to have a discount on some new merchandise. And if you have any ideas or suggestions or questions, where do they go, Nate?
Squatch Talks Podcast at gmail.com.
And if you have any sighting reports or any encounters you'd like to submit, you can go to
I don't remember that.
NASBRO.net.
NASBRO.
Of course, the BFRO.net is also a great place to submit a sighting report. And if it's in our area, then you might be speaking with one of us.
Yeah.
But hey, I think that covers all the business at hand. So once again, it was great hearing your stories, Geoff, and it's good to see you again. And
Good
I
to
look
see
forward
you
to
too.
running into you on the trails again soon, one day. Okay.
Yeah, we should do something. We should get out.
Yep.
Together.
Yeah, even
Well, stick around when we
you're not that far.
get off
You know,
of here.
you're back in Eastern Pennsylvania. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm going to thank our viewers. We just got over a little over an hour. So thanks for hanging with us tonight. We didn't get to do our recorded show. So this is the result, but I think it was worth the wait. So, hey, I have to go back to this other screen though, in order to click the end stream button. I'm still learning all this stuff, but hey, I got it to work tonight. Right.
There you go.
So thanks everybody. And Nate.
Yeah. Thanks for squatching.
All right.
We're still live. Oh,
there we go. How's that?